Welcome to Built with Purpose. I am Chris Fay, and this is the show where vision meets execution and leadership leaves a legacy. From design studios to innovation hubs and product lines to skylines, we meet the people building more than great companies. They're creating culture, driving impact, and shaping what's next. These are the stories and strategies behind how the world gets built with purpose.
Hey everybody, welcome to Built with Purpose. I am Chris Fay, your host. Today with me is a buddy of mine and actually a new business partner of ours is Mark Moses. He is the founder and now chairman, which we'll ask a few questions about that in just a bit, of CEO Coaching International. They coach some of the biggest and brightest minds in the CEO space. And so Mark, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
It's going to be a good conversation. I know I was telling Mark I'm going to be down. Mark lives down in South Florida, and I'm going to be down his way tomorrow. But Mark, you're actually heading out for Europe tomorrow, and so we're gonna miss each other potentially in the air.
Yeah, we're heading off to a YPO formate's daughter's wedding in Taormina.
Oh my gosh! Okay, is that first time there?
Second time. We happened to be there last year too. I didn't know that I was going to be back again this year, but Taormina is a beautiful place, and we look forward to it.
Oh, so cool, man. That is awesome. Well, Mark, I'm really excited to have you on the show today. I mean, just a little bit of framework for the listeners. I got introduced to Mark through our Young Presidents Organization, YPO, that Mark mentioned, and then I actually am working with Mark's company with one of their CEO coaches, and so I've had the pleasure to experience what that work has been like. And obviously, Mark, I want to dive into that a little bit later. But honestly, you have got a really amazing background as far as where you've come from, the experiences you had. I've realized that you're a squash champion. So is that squash champion, marathoner? I mean, you got this an amazing history. So kind of lead us up, give us a little bit of a high level, maybe a 30,000 foot view of just what your experience has looked like and ultimately what led you to get started with CEO coaching.
So I grew up in a small town in Canada, a little mining town, 250 miles north of Toronto. It's a nice place to live, but I wanted to get out. So when I went to college, my dad had gone bankrupt when I was 17. And so he didn't have any money to help me out with college. So he gave me $1,000 and said, it's all I can do. And you got to figure it out. And it was a tough time in my family's life watching your father, who's an entrepreneur, go out of business. But it was the best gift he ever gave me, because I learned that if I want to go to college, I got to figure out how to pay for it. If it was meant to be, it was up to me. So when I was 19, I started my first company while going to school full time. And it was pretty cool being an entrepreneur, figuring it out as you go. And we just started painting homes for people in the neighborhood. I hired some other students. And that first summer, I did $70,000 worth of business.
Holy cow.
Made $18,000. It only cost $4,500 a year to go to school in Canada. So I felt like I
paid for school.
Paid for school, flush with cash, and which was wonderful. And then I did it again the next summer and made $35,000 in profit. And I thought I was going to school to become an accountant. I don't know what I was thinking then, but I figured I could end up hiring an accountant. And so it led me to a lifelong entrepreneurship career. So went from my little painting business, then I moved to California from Canada, set that up in California, same business, set up 250 locations, grew it to 3,000 people, sold it when I was 26, then moved into the mortgage business. I felt qualified to be in the mortgage business because I had a mortgage. So then did that.
And you ran a 3,000 person painting company. I mean, of course, mortgage is like the easy next logical step, right?
Right. Ish. So I did the mortgage company for 13 years. It was an amazing ride. It was filled with triumph and defeat. And ultimately, I grew it to 1.6 billion in annual business.
Wow.
After several failures along the way, that had me with bankruptcy schedules filled out at one point, and we could talk more about that if you want. And but I ultimately sold the business October of 2006, just before the global financial crisis. So sometimes better be lucky than good.
Yeah.
And so my timing was very lucky then. And then a couple years later, just by accident, somebody asked me to coach them. And I said, maybe I'll do it for a couple of months. And that was 18 years ago. And if you fast forward to today, where I've been doing this now 18 years, we have coached over 2,000 CEOs and leadership teams around the world in 90 countries. 107 of those have exited for about $27 billion. So it's been an exciting ride. We employ today about 75 former CEOs as our coaches that execute on the methodology that we've taught them.
Amazing. Yeah. It's funny. So my son's about to be 17 this summer. So your story like resonates with me because, we're taking some risks in our business and really kind of thinking about that next evolution. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure that I can get past my son's 17th birthday without any issues. But no, and Mark, I think one of the things I just kind of dive in just a bit is what I've talked about on the show and we've talked about with some of our guests in the past is that how these experiences really shape who you are today. And I mean, just kind of listening briefly to your story, I mean, kind of witnessing your entrepreneurial father having the financial issues, and then you having these amazing, experiences of great business, triumph, then obviously some challenges along the way, but then ultimately you stuck with it and kind of got to that pinnacle point of selling your business and then enabling you to coach and then build this company. But I mean, it's probably a pretty rhetorical question, but I mean, talk about those struggles. Like, are they like imprinted in your mind? Is that just a chip on your shoulder that you have to drive through it? Like how have you taken those really hard times and kind of put that into practice today?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about that a lot, and I think about it with some of the interesting people that I've met. There's a whole bunch of people that have experienced parents going bankrupt, and those that I've gotten to know through our mutual organization at YPO have done some amazing things, and it's part of what fuels us. For me, I was fueled by, I got to figure this out on my own, and also it's I didn't have a choice. And so it was either step up or don't. And the don't was never an option. It was just having to figure it out. And I was also driven by fear of watching what my dad went through and not wanting to go through that again, not wanting to go through what he went through, because I just saw at 50-ish years old and having to start all over is pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how, when you exited in 2006, and great, by the way, amazing timing. That's sometimes being better, lucky than good sometimes is the right approach there. But like, as you started your CEO coaching and obviously you've developed this Make Big Happen framework, I mean, how much of that experience did you put into the CEO coaching international business, and then kind of ultimately led you into the Make Big Happen? Like, did those experiences change a bit of the framework that you deploy with your customers?
Well, so I had, we talked about this before we got started today. I've been an athlete all my life. So I played competitive tennis, won the U.S. Squash Championship, done a dozen Ironman, the World Championship in Hawaii 5 times. And I've always had a coach for sports. And then for business, I've had a coach since I was 24. And I've had some wonderful coaches over the years that brought something to me that I needed at that time. And at different stages of our life, we need different things. So the coach I think about the most really taught me what I was supposed to focus on as a CEO. And he said, Mark, there's really 5 things as a CEO that you need to focus on. Give me the list. So number one, Mark, you're responsible for the vision. Where are you going as a company, and are you championing that vision? Number two, as an entrepreneur, you're ultimately responsible for cash. So you got cash, life is good. You don't have cash, it's not so good. And profit does not equal cash. You could have a business that's profitable and still run out of cash.
Mm.
Number three was ensuring you got the right people in the right seats. And the people that get a business from A to B aren't necessarily the same people that'll take it from B to C and C to D, which is sad but true. The number four was key relationships. Who are the most important relationships in the firm, such that if those relationships were to go away, what happens to your business? And who owns those relationships? Is it you or somebody else in the firm that could potentially leave and take those relationships with them? And then number five is a process to continue to learn. You and I both learn through YPO, and we learn through industry conferences. We both have coaches. And so great way to continue to learn. We can learn a lot today from AI and our favorite LLMs, but just continuing to learn. So I'd always been coached in business, and that helped me, all my experiences being coached, to develop the frameworks that worked when I was running my business or businesses. And there aren't hundreds of best practices in terms of ways to run a business. There's a set of few best practices that really work. And those that do them, even if they're not that good, but have a system for running their businesses, often do better than those that don't.
Yeah. And so what percentage of the CEOs, I guess, that you've worked with in the past, number one, have never had a coach before, right? And then number two is you think about vision, cash, right people, key relationships, and then this like desire, continuity of learning. Like where do you see most CEOs not falling down, but maybe not recognizing? Where's that, like one of those five areas that you see the biggest opportunity for improvement in?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You could take me in another direction in a moment, but I'll pause on that for a moment. The biggest one, if I could pick one, 18 years of coaching, having the right people in the right seats. And that one for sure is, so why is it that most people don't have the right people? So let me ask a few questions just for your audience to think about this. And having spoken all over the world to YPO and other groups, I ask this question all the time. Would you rate every member of your leadership team today an A, as in an A, B, or C? The question is every one of them. Majority of time, majority. It's audience of 300 people. Maybe two people will say, yeah, everybody's an A. Okay. Would you enthusiastically rehire everyone again if you could? Well, that again is, you might get 2 or 3 hands out of 300. Do you believe your current team will take it where you want to be a year from now? How about 3 years from now? You virtually always get no hands on 3 years from now. You virtually always get no hands on, would you enthusiastically rehire them again if you could? And then you'll say, well, is good enough then? You know, Chris is good. Yeah, but is he great? And is he the guy that's going to take us where we want to go? It's a different question. And so I have learned that the longest time in our life as leaders is the time we lose confidence in someone, and that long period of time, we do something about it. And A players, they want to hang out with other A players. And like Jim Collins said, the only way to deliver to the people achieving is not to burden them with the people that aren't achieving. So when I ask people, how many people have you fired too soon? Everybody laughs and says, well, nobody. So as we vacillate for 6 months, a year, 10 years in making those difficult decisions, most people on our team later come back to us and say, what took you so long? Or We thought everybody knew but you.
So why is that, Mark? I mean, obviously I think about in my own experiences and just, being maybe nicer than we should, wanting to see the best in people and give them a second chance. I mean, but why are nobody's hands going up in those scenarios? Is it just because that we're being nice and we're being loving and we're just trying to take care of our people, or we need somebody from the outside to push us to think a little bigger and a little differently? Like what is it? Why are we all not taking action on these?
Yeah. So that's a loaded question, which when you asked the question a while ago, the comment I was going to give you was people don't think big enough. So everybody's got self-limiting beliefs. So once you've decided, let's just say somebody's revenue is 40 million and you add a zero to it, now it's 400 million. Now ask the question, do you have the right people to go from 40 to 400 over the next 10 years? So it's 10x growth over 10 years. It's only 26.7% year over year growth for 10 years. So it's not ridiculous. It's very reasonable growth. But the reason is they get stuck in you know what? They've been here since the beginning. They're part of the culture. They're a big part of the company. What happens if they leave and they go somewhere else and take some of the people with them? What if the new person I hire isn't as good as the person that I had? And what impact will that have? What's everybody going to think of me because I replaced that person? That's some of the things that people think about.
Which is fear.
So it's fear. So what happens if it's my head of sales, and even though I rate my head of sales a 5 out of 10, but what if he leaves and takes some customers with him that I would hate to lose? Now what happens? What if he takes some of the good people with him as well? What impact's that going to have on my business? And so those are some of the things that people feel. And then we live on the same street. Our kids play together. Yeah. We're all part of the same circle. He's in my YPO chapter, plays at my golf country club. So we're so interconnected that this question about, what's success? We'll call 3 years from now. And is the team that you have today the team that's going to take you where you want to be 3 years from now? If the answer is no, you got to make a change. It doesn't necessarily mean every time that somebody needs to leave the organization. And for example, this client of mine had this great woman running HR. And however, we're now over 4,000 people working in the company. She's never watched that movie before with that many people, was overwhelmed, fallen behind, frustrated, losing confidence in her ability to do this. We didn't get rid of her. We brought in a chief people officer over top of her. He was 60 years old. The plan was he was going to work for the next 4 or 5 years and retire and school her up to take that role instead. So it doesn't mean these people need to be fired, but how you upskill them to be the organization that you want to have for yourself over time.
And do you that's a great kind of statement. I was just thinking about some of the companies, some of the folks that I have, because we're taking steps that we've never been through before, right? And so there's this idea, and I would say just whether it's everybody or maybe just me, of these people that have helped get us to this point. Let's find a way to continue to grow and develop them so they can kind of make it to the next step. But then sometimes you need to bring, talent in from the outside, whether it's kind of over top of, in support of, or in replacement of. Like, how many times do you feel like going in that 10x level? How many times do you find people that are able to upskill, right, kind of along that journey, versus just having to get new folks? Like, is it more often than not that you can train and develop, or is it more often than not that you probably just need to find somebody else that has maybe that 10x experience?
I'm going to grab my microphone for this one, because this is an important answer. Almost never.
Yep.
Yeah, and the reason is, I give you so many case studies. We've had 107 of our clients sell for $27 billion. And so now go back and study the 107 and go, what would happen along that journey? In almost every case, people were placed multiple times along the way. Because I'll give you an example. This client of mine, YPOer Rich Ballot, he went from 70 million. I think you met Rich. And
Yeah.
so he's 70 million minus 8.5 million in EBITDA, rates his head of sales. I said, hey, you're head of sales. He has a sales problem. Scale of 1 to 10. How effective is he? He says he's my best friend from high school. I said, I didn't ask you that question. I said, how effective is he? He said, okay, he's a 2. So we ended up hiring the best person in the whole country, and his revenue went from 70 million to 330 million. EBITDA went from minus 8.5 to 29 million in 39 months. Wow. And it was like, wow. And that was a complete redo, started in that role and then worked our way through all the roles. Now, today's over 3 billion in revenue. The team's turned over multiple times because it's a completely different skill set running a company at, let's say, 70 million or 100 million, and then running a company at 500 million or 2 billion. It's very different. My client Taskus, who's a longtime YPO as well, we went from 6 million in revenue to last year they did 1.2 billion in revenue. And along the way, as every 2 or 3 years, we had to trade people out. Not all of them at once, but we had to upskill the CFO, especially when we sold part of the company to Blackstone. Then we went public. It's a very different skill set having to deal with, for example, having a Blackstone as a partner or being a public company. Very different skill sets along the way. So you as a leader need to match, what talent do I need to achieve that outcome that I really want to have? And that is across the board, worldwide, same issue, virtually every company.
How often is the CEO the wrong person?
Well, that's an interesting question. If you are the founder, I get asked that question all the time. If you're the founder and it's your business and you're a 100% shareholder, or maybe you have a partner, you still could be the problem. The question is, who do you need to attract to make up for your weaknesses?
Right.
And at some point, you probably need a really strong president or chief operating officer, a strong CFO, these days a chief AI officer, who's on your leadership team that's really going to take you where you want to go. And I remember the example I just gave you with Blackstone. The young CEO was 32 at the time, and he said to me, do you think I'm qualified to lead a Blackstone company? I said, I don't know. Do you want to? And are you willing to build a team that'll enable you to perform at Blackstone? Then he said, do you think I'm capable of being a public company CEO at 35 years old? I don't think so. But he's still there today as the CEO of the company. He's built an incredible team around him. So it's really up to the leader. Are they willing to surround themselves with the right people, get aligned on the vision, get aligned on who owns what, and then get out of the way and let them do their jobs.
And then how just, I'm thinking about one of my minds goes to managing culture. So you're like every 2 to 3 years, there's some sort of change, fundamental change on the leadership team. And so, if you're a contributor in the business, maybe let's call it for 5 or 10 years as either an individual contributor or kind of moving up the ranks, or you found yourself there and you see, and I don't want to call this turnover by means because as a bad thing, but what are kind of some of the best practices a CEO can deploy as we're making these changes on the leadership team, to manage that culture? Because I know when people see, especially in small to mid-sized businesses, I would think that when CEOs are so focused on culture, and I would say that we're probably one of those people. I would say we sometimes get sensitive to the thought of turnover in the business. Like, oh my gosh, like what's the perception of this going to be? We're talking about growth and change and these opportunities to build this business for the future, but yet, this executive just left, or I had to replace this person with a new head of sales. I mean, how do you find that managing culture changes when you're trying to pursue this level of growth?
The CEO's job, as I mentioned earlier, is to champion the vision. Where are we going? And ensuring that they have the right people on the bus to do that. And it doesn't happen overnight. So let's say you have these ambitious goals and you're meeting every quarter with your team. What went right this quarter? What went wrong? What'd you learn? How did we do on the goals compared to how we said we would do? How did we do on the activities we're keeping score on that we said would drive the outcome that we want? You're not replacing the people that get done what they say they're going to do every month and every quarter. You're ultimately replacing the people that fall short quarter over quarter. They just can't get it done. There's really no surprise when it comes.
Gotcha. Yeah, because to your point, if you're kind of measuring and holding teams accountable and exposing metrics and performance, if they fall behind, it's really a them problem and not necessarily a company problem, because it should be visible, right?
Yeah, it's going to be visible to everybody, especially if you're publishing your scorecards on how we doing compared to how we said we were doing, how we doing on everything that we're measuring every day, every week, every month. Either we're hitting it or we're not. So we'll do everything we can to help, but ultimately leaders got to own it. And so in whatever role that you're in, do you own it?
And then how does, if I'm thinking about the roles and responsibilities, so a lot of our listeners are in the manufacturing, technology, construction, design space, and so different businesses, but all facing the same challenges. And you think about just a basic organization with kind of president and CEO. You've got the leader of sales, and then if there's implementation or delivery operations and finance and HR and all kind of the pieces, like, is there one singular role that you typically come back to and say, look, we got to first thing, instead of tackling, kind of scorched earth with these 5 or 6 or 10 leaders, we need to really focus on A. Is it what is kind of the number one starting point? Is it the biggest problem, or is it revenue, or is it finance and CFO? Where do you tend to see kind of the first level of attack of leadership upgrade, I'd say?
Yeah, it depends on the business, but generally, what do most people you meet in YPO, what do they want? They want more revenue, right? So you're tackling your revenue engine.
And then I had to, you mentioned it a bit ago, so just kind of pivot on you a little bit as we start to talk about AI. You mentioned kind of the core leadership roles that would be inside of any organization, but then there's this chief AI officer, AI lead, kind of tech lead, and just trying to think about, with everything that's going on in the world today and the pace by which change is happening around artificial intelligence. I mean, talk to me about that a little bit. I mean, I know you all are doing a lot in kind of the AI education and making sure that your companies that you support are well positioned, but where do you see kind of the state of AI in business? Maybe that's kind of one key question. And then where do you see, like, as you look across all of your customers and the people that are that you all are supporting? I mean, are people behind? Are they kind of on track? Are they ahead? I mean, what's kind of your view of where businesses are in this ecosystem?
One thing about AI, it's here, it's happening super fast, and it's going to continue to accelerate. So what does that mean for leaders in running their business, and what does it mean for organizations? Is this a technology problem, or is this a structural leadership issue? So it's interesting, right? It's think about it this way: am I investing everything I can in having the right leadership to drive what I want as a result of AI? So here's some questions to think about that I like to think about when I think about AI. How do I use AI in my business to become indispensable to my customers? How do I use AI to maybe build a moat around my business? How do I use AI to drive a lot of cost out of our organization? Especially in roles that are, you maybe have 50, 60, 80 people in a role. if you can train a human to do it, you can clearly train a machine to do it. So how do I use AI to make me faster, better, cheaper, higher quality? How do I use AI to do that? And so AI is going to continue to come at us. How are we going to use it to build better companies? And unfortunately, this time, if we don't move quickly, somebody else is going to move there ahead of us and take market share away from us. So I think it's an important question for businesses to think about. What is success 3 years from now? I know it's hard to think beyond that today. And then how do I position my company to achieve what I want 3 years from now? And how do I leverage AI to become the player?
And so where do you find, when you ask those questions of businesses, I mean, where do you find most CEOs or business units? Are they feeling that they're behind? Are they feeling that they're kind of on track and they have the right leadership team in place? I mean, what's kind of the general temperature check of the average business that you work with?
Yeah, I would say, well, let's go to the world as a whole. Behind, really behind, and it's moving at a faster pace than most people can digest. And so, how now you ask me more specifically, how about our clients? I would tell you that they're also behind, and but they're working on it because they're being pushed to think about it all the time. But generally, most people are behind because they didn't. When, say, about 18 months ago, and 18 months ago, probably a lot of people, the majority of your my colleagues, never even heard of ChatGPT 18 months ago. We're just starting to learn about it and start playing with it. Now, can you imagine, is there a day that goes by that you don't use one of your favorite LLMs every day for something? And the quality of it continues to get better and better. So the speed of it is happening faster than the people can digest it. Additionally, people are reacting to something that they read, something that they heard, something that a friend told them about, or somebody in the organization said. The question is, I remember when I went into one of my clients that has about 2,000 Verizon stores, and I asked his technology leader, his CTO, presented on their AI plan. And it was impressive. Then I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I wondered, it was a lot of stuff. And I wondered, which one of these, of all this shit, helps us achieve one of our top 2 or 3 goals that we have for the year? He said, I don't know. So are you focused on the right things? What are you trying to solve for? Mm-hmm. And are you using AI to help you achieve your goals, the goals that you really want, whatever those goals are? Or are you just doing stuff that's easy, that you heard, that will likely have an impact, but not really move the needle on your business?
Yeah, and I think, and I just know from our own experience, and then talking to a number of folks, that I don't think we're used to, we just as call it a population or a series of CEOs and business leaders, even though things have historically always moved very quickly, I don't think any of us have ever predicted the level, the pace of change by which AI is influencing. And so we had a conversation internally today, and there was kind of a retrospective on some of the technology that we have, from maybe 6 months ago. 6 months ago, it wasn't really ready. It wasn't out there. Well, now it is, right? This isn't like years and years and years of innovation. This is like weeks, days and weeks and months. And so I think that, we're trying to make sure that we're reframing our mind to say, yeah, I mean, of course, Claude couldn't do this 6 months ago, but today it actually could. And if you take that pace of change over the last 18 months and you project it forward another 18 months, it's probably going to move significantly faster and have that much more capability. So I think some of us are just wrestling with just the pace of change. And I think just embracing that pace of change and really starting to forecast, well, if that level of change happened from that point to today, what's that level of change going to look like, 6, 12, 18 months from now?
Really, really hard to forecast how much change is going to happen. For example, I live in Miami. There are I'll say maybe 3 or 4 months ago, there were no Waymos in Miami. They're everywhere now. And so I'm sitting there thinking, when there was 4 lined up right at the light, right, all in line together, I'm going, oh my God, what's going to happen to the million Uber drivers in the US over what, the next 2 years?
Yeah.
Are there going to be any Uber drivers left? And you just start thinking, well, what's the impact going to have on the auto industry? The ripple effect of this is going to be incredible. And so businesses really need to think about who are the leaders in their business. And now, just recently, the first $1 billion company, billion in revenue with one employee. It's really changed the game on how a business can compete today and what a business needs. And it's going to continue to change.
So what's your thought? So that's an amazing. You think about the impact of Waymo, and I was in Atlanta a couple weeks ago. They were all over the place, and I live in South Carolina, and so obviously not a major hub of Waymo attack yet. But so just as business leaders, there's this like fear of, is AI just going to completely take out our business model, or is there a business opportunity for us? Obviously, it's going to look significantly different. Like, we're in the tech space and software and consulting space, and all of those are being, disrupted. You read articles about SaaS apocalypse and, the way software is changing and the way delivery models are changing. And so there's this one question that says, man, are we just doomed? Or is there really going to be an opportunity for us, but we just have to be prepared to change, and maybe our business is going to look different. So what's your just broad viewpoint of, is this just going to put all of us out of business and we're all going to be on, universal payroll and healthcare and, living out on farms together? Or is this also a really strong business opportunity that we're going to create more jobs and new companies and new applications that have never been generated before? I mean, what's kind of your just personal
I'm going to take the latter. There's going to be all kinds of disruption. And who said, I think it was Dario from Anthropic said white collar bloodbath.
Yeah.
It's scary. I got kids in their 20s. So, and I see their friends all the time. Employment is really hard for kids coming out of college today. And for example, who needs an analyst at a PE firm or investment banker today when you can just have Claude, for example, do all that stuff faster? You don't have to, you train it a little bit, but the analysis it'll do for you is incredible. You made me think of a couple of things. One of them was when you talk about SaaS and the meltdown as an example. I ride my bike with this guy, and in 2021, he sold 25% of business for $700 million. It was 40 million in revenue and a little bit of profit, SaaS.
Mm-hmm.
He's now over 100 million in revenue, just a little over 100, making $15 million profit a year. The valuation today is 200 million. Wow. He's way more successful, way better business today than he had back then, but he's in the SaaS space and it's completely undervalued today. And so the landscape really changed. Now think about the other example I want to give you. The other day I was hiring somebody, and I went to Claude and I said, I'd like you to play the persona of the top PE firms in this particular space. And then I'd like you to design an appropriate compensation program with bonus tied to the objectives that I want, and then design an LTIP program exactly the way the top PE firms in the country in the space would design it. Moments later, I had it all done, and they said, what format would you like it in? Would you like it? I can prepare 3 different versions for you in Excel, so you could play with all the levers and et cetera, et cetera. God, all this, the full LTIP program done with everything that I would need. And I'm going, wow, that just think all the jobs that just got displaced
right.
by what I just described. And it's amazing when you're playing the persona of even A little risk in this, but even what would the top doctors in the world, not just in the US or not in my neighborhood, say for whatever diagnosis, how would they tackle this exact issue based on this set of facts? Upload your MRI, upload your x-rays, all that stuff, and get incredible answers that you could not get in real time so fast. 60 days ago, 90 days ago, 120 days ago, it's amazing. It's going to keep changing.
Well, it's scary. I mean, it really is. And you mentioned the college entrance. I mean, I've got a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they're going to be finishing school and going to college, and we're talking about like what they want to do. And one son wants to get into business, one wants to start a company, which is really cool. But you start thinking about as those entry-level roles are replaced by technology. And then you have, let's call it older or more experienced individuals that are doing a lot more of the thought work, maybe at the high level. It almost creates some level of an artificial barrier to entry from younger people getting in to then ultimately acquire the skills to be the more, strategic thought leader in the business. And so it'd be really interesting to see how that's going to impact these roles. Because you think about, hey, I just graduated a marketing degree. Well, entry-level marketing has changed forever. Hey, I'm just a SDR, or BDR, sales outbound role, entry-level analyst, entry-level accountant. I mean, as those roles begin to evaporate, where do these kids go? Like, where do they go?
Let me give you an example. I think I read this recently, and I like the example because it makes a lot of sense. So years ago, they thought the radiology industry was in deep trouble. Did you read this?
I did, yeah. But keep going.
But I think it's a fantastic example. And so people stopped going to the radiology school and getting their whatever degrees they need to read all these things and all the technicians. But what happened was the pie grew so much bigger that now there's a massive shortage in that. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, but there's also going to be a lot of drama in terms of it's going to be changed. There's going to be businesses that are going to go out of business. There's going to be a lot of them. There's not going to be as many winners, but what an opportunity for your kids to become entrepreneurs. What problem do they want to solve and use all this new technology that's virtually no cost to help build whatever they could do anything now.
Yeah, it's endless. Yeah, and honestly, to your point, the barriers to entry for them to start solving problems for customers, they can do it a lot faster. They can do it a lot cheaper. We were talking internally because we work kind of in this design, build, manufacturing space that this morning is the problems of an industry need to be solved potentially by industry experts. So the thing that we have is we have industry expertise, right? So as far as this it's not necessarily horizontal experience, but it's deep vertical experience. And our belief is that's one of the competitive advantages and the moats that we have compared to kind of just the generalist. And I was just thinking some companies that I've talked to is just, where is your unique value proposition? Where can you dive really deep to solve customers' problems? But if you're not going deep enough and you're just kind of wide technology platform solving problems for anybody and everybody, I just feel like those are the ones that are potentially more at risk than the ones that can really solve deep domain challenges in businesses.
Chris, think of your own business for a moment. Think about what it is that you really want and how you can use AI to get it. And I really like the question about indispensability. How do you become indispensable to your customers through the use of AI?
Yeah.
Imagine if every business could answer that question. Wow. How do I become the market leader with the use of AI? What would have to be true?
I love that. And I think and I know we're getting up on time, so I want to watch the clock. I think that's probably the best kind of call to action for, any leader or any CEO that's listening to the pod today is just thinking about what is that fill in the blank leveraging AI? You added that little AI tagline, like what's your unique value proposition by leveraging AI? Just adding that little flavor.
We talked about the moat a moment ago too. How do you build a moat around your business using AI?
Well, Mark, I tell you what, man, this has been amazing. And I know these things go so much faster. I would love to keep you on the horn and sit here and talk, but I just want to, that might be your closing statement is using AI, but I want to bring you back just a little bit to what we were talking about and vision, cash, right people, relationships, this like continual learning. We have this AI conversation that we've had and these experiences. I mean, just kind of come back, and if there's kind of this parting, our listeners could do one thing leaving today's call, right? If they're CEOs, if they're leaders, if they're coaches, whatever their role responsibility is, like they leave here today, what's the one thing, in the next week that they could take action on to help move their organizations, their teams, their businesses one step forward?
You asked for one. I'm going to give you a couple more than one. I hope that's okay.
That's okay, man. It's your answer.
First is get clear on what you really, really, really want. And second question is, how do I use AI to help me get it?
I love it, man. That was
clear,
awesome.
Right? And then now if I go to the third question, which is, how do I use AI to become indispensable to my customers? It's a really hard question. And those that figure that out are going to build amazing businesses and transform their own businesses and the lives of their employees.
It's awesome, man. Well, Mark Moses, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you hopping on the show today. It was an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. I know you're getting ready to travel tomorrow, and I wish you just amazing travels, and looking forward to catching up soon. I'll be down in Miami over the next couple months as well, and we'll have to spend a little bit of time together.
I'd love to see you when you come back to Miami. I'm off to begin the summer journey in Europe, and it gets a little hot here in Miami, so we go hide over in Europe in the summer.
Good for you, my friend. Well, thanks for attending the show today, bud.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
You too, Mark.
Okay, thanks for joining me on Built with Purpose. If you have enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps more bold leaders find the show. For resources and show notes, visit our website and connect with me, Chris Fay, on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep building great companies, cultures, and legacies with purpose.